Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Nelson, trying again this camera because everyone seemed to like it, and I'm also using a new microphone. I finally figured out how to access the microphones in the studio, so I'm using this one right now. Let me know how the audio sounds and what you guys think, but for today, we're going to be, as we all know, last weekend, the Super Bowl happened, so there was a lot of news about football going around, but there was also some news about basketball, that an NBA basketball that went on over the weekend that we probably don't remember, so I'm going to, I'm just going to give a quick recap of the weekend on the NBA, and then for our second segment, we are going to be talking about the three-point shooting contestants. I know I did a previous podcast talking about them before, but now that they've officially been announced, so I'm going to retouch on that again. And we are also going to, on the third segment, we are going to look at the NBA power rankings because they were just updated today. I just checked before starting the stream, and another article was updated today. And we also have, as always, we also have our fourth segment, but stay tuned to figure out what that fourth segment is. Before I begin with this segment, I'd like to remind everybody, as always, please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. The link is in the description as well as displayed below the ticker. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Really helps, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead into our first segment where we give a quick recap on what happened last weekend on the NBA because there was a lot of stories that happened this weekend. And one of the takeaways that I took from this weekend was I predicted the matchup of the week. If you guys remember, on Friday I said that the Lakers versus the Pelicans game was going to be the best matchup of the week because the rest of the games they ended in blowouts like the previous week before. And hold on, I'm just making sure. Yep, my microphone's on. All right. And with that in mind, I ended up being right. And the Pelicans and Lakers matchup, it was amazing. Throughout most of the first quarter, both teams shot 70% from the field. And yeah, there was no defense being played all day on either side, which is honestly very concerning for the Lakers and very concerning for the Pelicans because the Pelicans, when they were playing the Clippers, it looked like they were playing with much more urgency on the defensive end. Like they were actually like afraid of the Clippers and their offense. Going into this game, they sort of played a little bit lazy. And I found that a little bit odd. And I found Zion's defense surprisingly lazy. Like I know the jokes around him is that he's lazy, but like I didn't expect it was this lazy on the defensive end. It was really bad. Like he was allowing so many open looks from the corner three because he didn't want to close out. He was allowing so many open looks in the paint, and a lot of the Pelicans players were allowing a lot of open looks in the paint. There was really bad defense on the Pelicans. Now, as for the Lakers, the defense picked up in the second half, but it was really difficult to stop Zion in the paint and like all the attention that he was bringing to the paint. It was really bad game defensively, and as a result, it was a really good game offensively. In fact, the defense was so bad that it caused Los Angeles to break records. So the Lakers set I'm just looking at it right now. The Lakers set a franchise record for most points scored at the half with 87. And this is also the first Lakers squad since 1984 to have all five starters and with 20-plus points. So that just goes to show you how bad the defense was. The fact that every single Lakers starter, D'Lo, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Rui Hachimura, they all ended with 20-plus points. D'Lo, honestly, he probably deserves like the biggest apology letter from Lakers fans from all over the place. Before he was involved in trade talks, he was not playing the best basketball that he could. But once he got put into trade talks, he just took off. He turned into Michael Jordan. He ended the game with 30 points, and there was one stretch in the second quarter where he scored 14 straight points to help give the Lakers the lead. Austin Reeves also had a great night with 27 points. Ironically, LeBron and Anthony Davis ended up scoring the fewest amount of points in the starting lineup. I in the previous podcast, I said that LeBron and Anthony Davis, they needed a big game, but the rest of the starters ended up doing their part. And once they ended up doing their part, they didn't need a big game from LeBron and Anthony Davis. Bron had 21 and also tallied 14 assists. Obviously, that's what you get when your teammates end up making shots. Anthony Davis ended the game with 20 points, and Roy, finally, Darvin Ham is using his coaching knowledge, and he's putting Roy in the starting lineup. I'm so proud of what he's doing. He's playing phenomenally right now. Like, ever since he got put in the starting lineup, the Lakers have been playing a lot better basketball, and they've been winning a lot more games. So, props to Darvin Ham for actually making an adjustment, unlike some other coaches, which I will get to in a second. And this was very good. This was very smart. I like the adjustments to the bad defense towards in the middle of the game, like towards the half. The Lakers going into the half, the Lakers sort of realized that the paint defense from the Pelicans, it wasn't that strong. So instead of taking a bunch of three-pointers to open up the second half, they decide to attack the paint. And because of that, they ended up getting much better looks in the paint, and that caused them to go on a run and eventually win the game in the end. They didn't try to force that many threes, and they kept getting easy looks inside. So now on the Pelican side, Zion ended with 30 points. Brandon Ingram also ended with 22. This Pelican squad beat the Clippers, but they got absolutely owned by the Lakers. So it's a weird rock, paper, scissors because, the Clippers beat the Lakers beat the Pelicans beat the Clippers, but they can't beat the Lakers. Rock, paper, scissors. We know how that works. It's a bit confusing to, figure out where the Pelicans rank, and whether they're just going to be a one-and-done team, whether they're going to be a second rounder, or whether they have a chance to make it all the way. I personally, depending on the matchups, most of the time, I think they are going to be a first-round team. They are not going to do much in the first round, depending on the matchups. Now, if they get a good matchup in their favor, let's say maybe Phoenix with their lack of defense, then maybe they could make it far and they could make it to the second round. But if they end up matching up against and even the Clippers, if they end up matching up against the Clippers, I feel like they have a chance of winning the series because for some reason the Pelicans play some of their best basketball going up against the Clippers. But going up against any other team that's really dominant in the paint, like the Nuggets, that's almost a death sentence if they match up against the Nuggets. Or maybe if they match up against OKC as well with Chet Holmgren and his height. So with that in mind, if they were to match up against OKC or if they were to match up against the Nuggets, I think that's their death sentence. And even the Timberwolves, if they match up against any of those teams, that's their death sentence. But if they match up against Phoenix, I think they have a much better chance. Same with the Clippers, only because they just somehow play a lot better against the Clippers. It's weird, but they're 11-4 against the Clippers in their last few games. So, and the Clippers have been a much better team than the Pelicans within that span, because within that span there are times where Zion would miss some of the games. So, I definitely think that it's going to be down to matchups for the Pelicans if they want to make a deep playoff run. And it's starting to look like on the Lakers side, it's starting to look like they figured it out. And that wasn't the only news for the Lakers. Rob Pelinka was sitting next to Spencer Dinwiddie in that game, and right when I saw that, I was like, oh, the Lakers are going to pick up Spencer Dinwiddie. And they ended up doing that. He ended up Spencer Dinwiddie ended up clearing waivers, and the Lakers decided to sign him for, I forgot exactly the details of the signing, but they have him for 1 year. And I think this is a great pickup for the Lakers. They didn't do anything in the trade deadline, so they didn't need to lose any of the pieces that they have. They did not have to trade D'Lo. as you know, I think Austin Reeves is a little overrated, so I wouldn't have mind if they traded him. But D'Lo was really like the important piece that I didn't want to be traded, given how he was playing. So the fact that they added um, D'Angelo Russell's former teammate from the Brooklyn Nets, I think that's great for the chemistry on the team, and it also provides a lot more spacing because Spencer can shoot threes. He's not like a laser 3-point shooter, but he's a great shot maker, and he's definitely a great piece for the Lakers. And he can isolate with the ball as well. He can create shots for himself, and he can create shots for the team, which in turn is what the Lakers need when LeBron is sitting out, and if D'Lo or Austin Reeves aren't having the best of games. But this is a great move. Now, as a Nets fan, I'm a little bit bitter because I liked both of those players when they played for the Nets, but especially since like we just got Spencer Dinwiddie back last year, so I'm a little bit sad to see him go. But I guess it was for the best, and that's basically those are the news. That's the news that happened like throughout the Lakers game. Bad defense from the Pelicans, bad defense from the Lakers. What does this mean for the Lakers moving forward? It's really difficult to say because this Lakers lineup, it just did something historical against bad defense. So what happens when you put them up against a team with good defense and the rest of the starters aren't doing something historical? Because it just so happened that everybody was on that night. It just so happened. So with that and their inconsistencies in mind, it's very difficult to figure out where to rank these Lakers, given how they've played and given their performances in some of these recent games. Because like they're back and forth. It's like LeBron said, at one point it looks like that they can beat any team in the league, and then at other points it looks like they could lose to the worst team in the league. So with these inconsistencies in mind, hopefully after the All-Star break, they'll finally get their rotation. Darvin Ham will finally get his rotations down. The players are finally going to step up to the moment. The players are going to be a lot more consistent because that's ultimately what LeBron and Anthony Davis need. They need consistency from their three-point shooters, from their floor spacers. They absolutely need that. In more recent news, the Warriors played the Phoenix Suns and did not disappoint in the matchups whatsoever. They played on Saturday, I believe. And there were a lot of narratives going into this game. And the first narrative and the most recent narrative was how this was Draymond Green's first matchup against Jusuf Nurkic after he got suspended. So just to refresh everybody's mind, Draymond Green went into an indefinite suspension. It was 12. It ended up being around 12 games because he punched Jusuf Nurkic in the face. So, of course, he didn't learn from his mistakes, and they were still chippy to each other. There was one point where Jusuf Nurkic smacked the ground, just straight up smacked the ground, saying that Draymond Green was too small. And then Draymond retaliated on the other end by smacking the ground himself after he scored, saying that Jusuf was actually too small. So there was a lot of beef going on in this game, and it was very exciting to watch. And Nurkic also had a lot to say for after Draymond Green. He said, quote, he didn't learn anything. So in reference to his suspension, saying that he didn't learn anything and he still has some anger problems and whatnot. But Draymond, obviously, like, he doesn't care. That's just the type of player that Draymond is. He's going to try to get under your skin, especially if you're disrespecting him like that. Like, how did you expect him to react? How on earth did you expect him to react after you smack the floor and call him small? How else do you expect a player to react? It's like they're going to react and like they're going to get fired up. But that's one of the narratives. Like, I love Draymond, and he's not going to change just because of some suspension. But Nurkic, like, that's why they have him. Nurkic, like, lives in his head rent-free, and that sort of threw him off of his game. That's what Draymond is supposed to do. He tries to throw other players off from their game because that's the impact that he brings on the defensive end, as well as, like, just the impact that he brings to Golden State. And not to mention his playmaking ability and his mentoring and how it's rubbing off of Kuminga, and Kuminga's decision making has improved tremendously. So another narrative, and the more iconic narrative, is the fact that um, Kevin Durant and the big three of Steph Curry, Clay, and Draymond Green, they used to be teammates. It was the old big three versus KD's new big three. And to go along with that narrative, Draymond and Kevin Durant also have beef from their time on Golden State. And not to mention how Draymond actually allegedly said to Kevin Durant, "We don't need you. Leave." In 2018, when towards the end of the stint of Kevin Durant's stint in Golden State, because the chemistry was sort of like, it wasn't really there in 2018, and KD and Draymond got into a little bit of an argument, and Draymond allegedly said this to Kevin Durant. So with that in mind, there's a lot of bad blood between Kevin Durant and Draymond Green. Draymond Green doesn't necessarily respect KD the way that KD believes he should be respected, because going to Golden State, the reason why Kevin Durant went to Golden State was because he wanted respect, and he thought he was going to get respect by winning rings. It's just the team that he played for, the team that beat him 3-1 in the playoffs, that was just going to make him lose respect from a lot of fans, because he's joining the team that beat him. That is a very, very weak move. One of the weakest moves that the NBA has seen. And his rings, therefore, like, according to the rest of the media, his rings sort of like don't matter as much as other people's rings matter, according to the media. And to add insult to injury, the Golden State Warriors ended up winning a title without him when he left, further proving that they really did not need him in the postseason to go on those runs. But enough about the narrative. Let's talk about the actual game itself. Curry ended the game with 30 points. Kuminga had 21, and Draymond Green had 15. Klay Thompson, once again, he was quiet this game, only scoring 5 points, going 2 for 10 and 1 for 7 from 3. He might be a splash brother, but right now he was playing like a trash brother. My bad, I digress. But, like, he's been playing really bad. He's been really bad recently. And it's sort of the reason why, like, a lot of Golden State fans and a lot of Warriors fans wanted him to be traded, because he's not doing his job. He's not playing like the splash brother that we've all feared. This is not the same Klay Thompson that could make 10 straight threes in a row and have the defense guessing, how do we stop that? It's not the same. And it should be noted that Curry ended the game with a game-winning 3. And I as a LeBron fan, I always say that Steph Curry is in clutch. But I usually say that he's not clutch in the postseason. I will say that he is clutch in the regular season, and he has definitely improved on hitting way more clutch shots this season and previous seasons than he has in, like, his entire career. He's definitely gotten better and is definitely, like, trying to put an end to the Steph Curry is not clutch narrative. But it also should be noted that while Curry hit the game-winning shot, Draymond was actually the one to close it out, because there was still some time left on that clock. And I believe there was I'm just checking right now. Yeah, there was about 3 seconds or 2 seconds left on the clock, and that was enough time for KD or anybody to get a shot off. But Draymond Green denied Kevin Durant the ball completely and therefore couldn't get the shot off. Golden State ended up winning the game. So it was a combined effort from Stephen Curry and Draymond Green that ended up marking the success for Golden State in this game. Golden State right now is on, I believe, they're on a 4-game winning streak, and they hold the 10th spot and a spot in the play-in. So they finally passed the Utah Jazz, like I said that they would, and they're in that play-in spot. But the team still has the ability to turn around. They still have the ability to turn it around. If Klay Thompson can find his stroke, can find his jump shot, and starts hitting right away, they could definitely turn the season around and they could probably make a deep run. But there's no telling when he'll find his jump shot, given how bad he's been playing recently. But it's definitely a possibility. Both playing teams, the Lakers and the Warriors, they're starting to look a little bit dangerous. I will say Golden State is looking much more dangerous than the Lakers. I know the Lakers, they just broke records, but that is like a one in a million thing, and they definitely got lucky with how bad the defense was on the Pelicans. And not only that, here's an interesting stat that I found. The Warriors are plus 27 when Steph is on the court, and they're plus 35 with Steph off the court. If you're Golden State, that's really good because it shows that you don't necessarily have to rely on Steph Curry to lead you the entirety of the way. But on the Lakers side, the Lakers, when LeBron's on the court, is plus 61. And when he's off the court, they're minus 98. That is seriously not ideal if you're the Lakers. That's not something that you want going into the playoffs because you essentially need LeBron to play 48 minutes in order for your team to stay afloat. That's what those numbers are telling me because when LeBron is off the court, they are minus 98. Teams are outscoring them by 98 points. Like, obviously, these aren't directly box plus minuses. This is just like a collective box plus minus. But still, like, if the opponents are outscoring your team that much when your best player, the oldest player in the league, is not on the court, that is a serious, serious problem, and one that is definitely not going to get overlooked in the postseason because, as you all know, LeBron fans, they constantly always say that LeBron doesn't have help, which it's true most of the time. But in this game, he did have help, but we'll see going into the postseason if that help is still there and is still consistent. But, with that, we are well over the time for the first segment, so I'm going to be right back after the short break where I talk about some of the participants of the three-point contest. So, once again, I'll be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Making sure. Yep. All right. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to talk about three-point shooters and because I mentioned previously in a previous podcast the possible three-point shooters in the contest. But now they've officially been announced, so I'm going to quickly touch upon that. But before I do that real quickly, again, I'd like to remind everyone, as always, please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. The link is in the description and it is displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, you guys, the viewers, puts your comments directly above on my screen. So once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And with that out of the way, we can quickly go into our second segment where I talk about the three-point contest and its participants. So Now that they've officially been named, I'm going to go and run down the list of shooters that are going to be in this competition. So we have, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton. We have Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Jalen Brunson, Malik Beasley, Lauri Markkanen. They were all the players that were previously mentioned in the previous podcast that were speculated to participate in the three-point contest, and now it's official. They are definitely in the three-point contest. And we have two new members that were just confirmed, and those two players are Trae Young and Karl Anthony Towns. So previously, I said that Lauri Markkanen was the only player on this list that wasn't a guard, and now Karl Anthony Towns joins him in that category. Those are the only two players in the three-point contest that aren't guards. And I didn't cover Cat because he just recently got mentioned, so I might as well go ahead and cover him, and I'll go ahead and cover Trae and then do a recap of what I think of the rest of the participants. So we'll start with Trae, actually. And we all know Trae, he just got selected to the All-Star team out of pity, unfortunately. For a while, it was looking like he was going to get snubbed until Joel Embiid and Julius Randle got injured. And that opened up two spots, and he ended up taking one of the spots for the All-Star game. Now, he definitely deserved to be an All-Star. Don't get me wrong. I've been saying it in all of my podcasts. He deserved to be an All-Star. Definitely deserved to be an All-Star over Damian Lillard this year because all of the numbers, I said this in a previous podcast, but all of his numbers, his points per game, his assists per game, his efficiency, they are all over Damian Lillard's. Now, it might be really close, but still, his stats are better than Damian Lillard. And so the fact that Dame took the starting lineup over him just shows how much of a popularity contest the All-Star game really is. And I actually think that Trae Young, he has the best chance of winning this three-point contest because a lot of the shots that Trae Young takes, they're really difficult shots. And he's also a great deep three-point shooter. And in the three-point contest now, they have the Mountain Dew deep three-point shot. So that's definitely going to give him a boost going into this contest. Same with Damian Lillard. However, just like the All-Star game, Damian Lillard was sort of picked in the three-point contest out of pity. And I'll explain that. Damian Lillard won the three-point contest last year. So it's only natural that Damian Lillard tries to defend his title for the three-point contest and see if he can go back-to-back. That's just normal. So, again, it was sort of like he was picked out of pity, and not much to really talk about Dame. Like, he won last year, so he obviously has to defend the title. He's been in a little bit of a shooting slump recently, so we'll see if that shooting slump is going to play into this contest, but again, he's Damian Lillard. We all know how dangerous Damian Lillard is from the three, and the fact that he won last year should only give him much more confidence in this competition. But I think Young has a much better chance of winning this competition. He's due for a three-point contest win, and he's a great shooter. And he takes a lot of difficult shots, yes, and that's why. And he's inconsistent, but he's inconsistent because he takes these difficult shots. Now that all of these shots that he's going to take are wide open, I definitely feel like he has the best chance to win in this contest, but that is just me. He's also a good deep three-point shooter, which is what you need in this competition now. And for Karl Anthony Towns, he's Dominican, so I like him regardless, but I'm not a really big fan of his game. I don't know why. It's like something about him just like it rubs me the wrong way. I don't know why, because like he is Dominican, he's a great person, great player. But again, like just something about him, just like I don't really like him. So I don't think he's going to end up winning this three-point contest. However, I will say that he is shooting better this season than he has in any other season at 44% from three. And granted, that's probably because he has Ant now to take some of the shots, alleviating him of a lot of pressure and alleviating him of a lot of shot attempts, therefore improving his percentage. And not to be entirely disrespectful on Karl Anthony Towns, but yes, he is without a doubt arguably the best big man, the best center three-point shooter that the NBA has seen. Center. Now, in my opinion, the best big man shooter is Dirk Nowitzki, but in terms of three-point shooting, Karl Anthony Towns is without a doubt the best three-point shooting center. So, definitely makes sense why he was invited into this three-point competition. And not all the players on the contest, however, have to be stars. And that's something that I don't really understand. Like right now in this three-point shooting contest, Malik Beasley is like the only person that you can argue that is a role player and not a star and strictly a three-point shooter. And I honestly would have rather seen Doug McDermott in this three-point contest as opposed to Donovan Mitchell. Simply because like Doug McDermott is like he's shooting 44% from three this year. He's not a star, but it's a three-point contest. This isn't the All-Star game where you need like the stars to keep the viewership. This is just a three-point contest. It should go to some of the best three-point shooters that the league has, and Doug McDermott right now is one of them. Excuse me. But Malik Beasley, the only sort of role player on that in that competition, and he also has an advantage. And I think if Trae Young isn't going to be the one to win it, Malik Beasley might be the one to win it, because he gets put in a lot of situations where he has to catch and shoot, and he has to catch and shoot from the corner, the hash, and all of those other spots. And with that in mind, in games he gets put in these types of scenarios much more than the rest of these players. Like, he gets put in catch and shoot scenarios a lot more than Trae Young, than Donovan Mitchell, than Damian Lillard, than Tyrese Halliburton, who all have to sort of create the shot and are all the playmakers for their team. So with that in mind, shooting is down to muscle memory. It is always down to muscle memory. And the fact that Malik's play style is composed of muscle memory and three-point shooting and catch and shooting, it gives him a serious advantage going into this three-point contest, because he's just doing things that he normally does in that sense. And I know I sort of contradicted myself there, saying how Trae Young takes the difficult shots and now these shots are going to be easier for him to make, but the key is consistency, and Malik Beasley is consistent in these types of situations. And because of the fact that I've seen that, I think that he has a great chance of winning this competition as well. Now, I still think Trae is going to be the favorite, but he also has a good shot. So I wouldn't count him out just because he's not one of the star players that I've mentioned. And we could talk about Jalen Brunson. I was really hot on Jalen Brunson, and I thought he was going to end up winning this three-point contest. Even if Trae was going to participate, I still would think that Jalen Brunson would win. But the reason why I'm switching is because Jalen Brunson right now is coming off of an ankle injury. If he were to participate in this contest with that injury, I'm not entirely sure how he is going to perform, how much that injury is going to get to his head. And with that in mind, I'd rather pick the healthy player as opposed to the player that just came off of an injury. That's my personal opinion. And I'm a huge fan of Tyrese as well. But his jump shot, I don't really think is a good jump shot for to make a run in the three-point contest, because it's two motions. It's not one smooth motion like Damian Lillard or Trae Young or the other shooters. It's two motions, and with that in mind, it gets very difficult to sort of get the muscle memory down when your jump shot is two motions. So I feel like that's going to hinder his performance just a little bit, because I'm not going to sit here and say that Tyrese Halliburton is not a great three-point shooter, but he's a phenomenal player, phenomenal three-point shooter, a good deep three-point shooter as well in the games that I've seen. But again, that form, I think it might end up costing him if he can't get into a rhythm, because it's just going to make that form just makes him getting into a rhythm more difficult. That's my opinions on it. And I haven't taught much about Lauri Markkanen. I actually have him as a dark horse to win the three-point contest. No, it's not because he's the only white three-point shooter on the list, which is honestly pretty funny. Like, for those of you who don't get the joke, the movie White Man Can't Jump, it's sort of made the stereotype that white players are going to be the best shooters on the team, and then the colored players are going to end up most of the time being the most athletic. And we see this in history as well. We see Kyle Korver, J.J. Redick, Klay Thompson, Steve Nash, Dirk, Peja, Drazen Petrovic, and even Luka Doncic now. Like, they aren't the most athletic of players in terms of, like, they don't really dunk the ball as much. I mean, Luka is an exception to that, and they are a little bit sluggish on the court. They aren't that athletic, but they are great shooters. And that's sort of been like the stereotype around like white people in the league being the shooters. And but I'm not going to be ignorant, and I'm not going to say that it's just the white people that can shoot, because some of the best three-point shooters are colored, like Steph Curry, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, Kevin Durant, J.R. Smith, all of those players. So it's just a funny joke, just a funny generalization for all of those who aren't casual fans of the NBA. But yeah, he's the only white person in this three-point contest, and that's not why I have him as my dark horse. I have him as my dark horse simply because of his actual like shooting in some of these games, and like he gets put in both situations where he has to create shots and where he does catch and shoot, because since he is a power forward / small forward, his job most of the time is to space the floor. So he has to be put in a lot of these catch and shoot situations, and he's shooting phenomenally well. And he's consistent. That is the big key among all of those players. He is very consistent. And it's also down to whether it's also down to whether or not you can catch fire. Volume shooters, they have a much greater advantage going into this competition. And that's why I think Trae Young is going to end up winning, because being a volume shooter, he gets more shot attempts. The more shots he takes, the better his percentage gets, and the more likely the chances of the other shots going in once he gets into a rhythm. Same thing can be applied for Tyrese. Same can be applied for Donovan and Damian Lillard as well. So that'll also give them an advantage going into the three-point contest. But with that, we're out of time for this second segment talking about the three-point contest. So tune in for the third segment, where we take a look at the updated NBA power rankings. I just checked this morning, and the list was recently updated, and I will be right back to you guys after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Thank you once again for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And today, in the third segment, we are going to be looking at the NBA power rankings. Now, they were just announced, but first, I'd like to talk about how the power rankings were last week, and in my opinions, what teams I think are going to be moved, what teams are going to move up, what teams are going to stay the same, and things of that nature. So the first team that was number one last week is the Clippers. Second is Boston. Third is Denver. Fourth was the T-Wolves. Fifth is Oklahoma City. Sixth is Cleveland. 7 is New York. 8 is the Milwaukee Bucks. 9 is the Phoenix Suns. And 10 was Philly. So, in my personal opinion, we'll start with Philly because that's going to be that's the easiest one. They're out of the top 10. 100% without a doubt, they got to be out of the top 10 in these next power rankings because they've shown me that they can't do much without Embiid. Now, I thought that the bench was going to respond in a big way in this, in a lot of these games and like respond to Joel Embiid being out, but they haven't been able to do that. They've been losing a lot of their games that they should win, and they would win if they had Joel Embiid. But because they don't, they're definitely going to take a huge tank in the rankings, and they should drop all the way down to like maybe 14, maybe 15 in the power rankings, but they're definitely not going to be top 10. And as for Phoenix, Phoenix has been rolling. I know I just mentioned how they lost to Golden State, but it was off of a game winner that Steph Curry hit. So not really much that like you could ask of them from there, just because like I mean it was down to the final seconds, and if Golden State can end up hitting the shot in the end. So I think even with that loss, they're going to move up because they've been playing really well they've been playing really good basketball. So I feel like they should move up and take the Bucks spot at 8, maybe even go up to 7, but I think 8 is a reasonable spot. The Bucks are without a doubt moving down to 10. Like, they have not been very good under Doc Rivers, and it's been very disappointing because the roster that they have, it seemed like they were going to be the team to beat along with the Boston Celtics when they had their former coach. But now that Doc Rivers was put into as the head coach, it's like now the entire East is up for grabs right now, apart from Boston. So the next team to beat, it's up for grabs between the Knicks and Cleveland, and arguably the Pacers if they figure out their defense. So with that in mind, the Bucks should definitely move down to 10. And the Knicks, while they don't have their best players, and because they don't have their best players, they should move up. But knowing how they don't have their best players at the moment, I feel like they're going to stay the same, and they're going to stay in that 7th spot. Maybe move down one to the 8th. The Dallas Mavericks we should expect them on the power rankings pretty soon. And they should probably be 10th or maybe 9th over the Bucks, simply because of just how well they've been playing against a lot of these teams and how they've been performing. Cleveland, I expect to be moved all the way up to the top 5 because they've been rolling. They've only lost one game out of their past 19 or 18, and they've been a really good team the last week, so they're definitely going to move up. They should pass Oklahoma City, and they should also pass the Timberwolves, who have not been playing the best basketball, and they've been losing to a lot of teams where they should win, especially OKC. I expect OKC to be moved down to 6 or 7. But the rest of the teams in the top 4, the Clippers, Boston, Denver, and the T-Wolves, they should probably stay the same. And I expect the 1, 2, 3, and the 4 to not change. Maybe flip-flop, like maybe Denver is going to be ranked above Boston, maybe. But again, I think the top 4 are going to be exactly the same. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the other article to see the NBA power rankings, just to make sure that the page isn't up for some reason, and that's odd. Give me 1 second as I go ahead and fix that real quick, just so I could have the page up. There we go. Now the page is up, and now you can see Week 17 of the power rankings as I go through them. Pardon me for that. I have no idea why it wasn't displayed there before. But let's go ahead. Oh, the Boston Celtics move up to number 1. That makes sense. The Clippers, they recently lost to the Pelicans, as I mentioned previously. So maybe that's what caused them to move down. But Boston Celtics, they retake the top spot in power rankings. Makes sense, honestly. They've been playing some great basketball. They also beat the Miami Heat recently. So I'm not mad about the fact that Boston moved up to number 1. They definitely deserve it. I'm not saying that they don't. The Clippers, they're the 2nd. So again, as I mentioned earlier, they dropped because the Pelicans recently beat them. Still a really good team. Again, I have to see it in the playoffs before I really make that much before I really go all in on the Clippers and their chances to end up winning the finals. They are the favorites, however, but still, it's like they are the Clippers, and we know what happens to the Clippers in the postseason. They collapse when it matters most. But let's continue going down this list. Oh, Cleveland is in top 3 right now. They move all the way from 6 to go up to 3. That is a very huge jump for Cleveland, and a very well-deserved jump for Cleveland, because they haven't been getting that much attention on this huge winning streak that they've been on. So very, very cool that they've been getting the attention that they deserve now. So I was wrong. I thought the top 3 was going to stay the same, but turns out Cleveland just jumps from 6 all the way up to 3. So congrats on them. They're definitely a very difficult team to beat, and one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference. The Denver Nuggets moved down from 3 all the way down to 4. Not a big jump, nothing to really worry about. The Denver Nuggets, they won the championship last year, and they still hold a high seed in the Western Conference. Nothing to really say about them, because we all know Jokic, we all know Jamal Murray, we all know how good their game is on the offensive side, and we all know how good they are as a team. So definitely I'm not entirely mad about that. Minnesota, they stay in the 5. They move down from 4 and go to 5, which is honestly something that I expected. I mean, actually, you know what? Scratch that. I didn't expect that, because I didn't expect Cleveland to make a huge jump, but I did expect Cleveland to be ranked above them in these power rankings. So not entirely surprised. I think 5 is a good spot for Minnesota, because they're sort of in that mid category. They're in that mid-tier category where it's like, we don't know how good this team really is. They could be one and done, and no one will be surprised, but they also could make a deep run, and no one would be surprised. So I think 5 is a great spot for them in these power rankings. OKC, they moved down from 5 to 6, and I expected this. They haven't been playing that well against teams where they should be winning, and they've been losing several games that are winnable. As you know, they lost to the Pistons at some point in the season. When you lose to the Pistons, there's something that needs to be fixed. There's something wrong. And when they lost to the Pistons, that's sort of when I lost hope on this team. And I'm just pulling up some of the scores on this game, because I am a little bit curious as to whether or not they won the previous game. Okay, they recently beat Sacramento in a blowout win, so definitely boosts their confidence there. They definitely needed that win, given how they've been playing recently and some of the games that I've watched, because I watched the Dallas game when they matched up against Dallas. They got blown out of the water. The final score was 146 to 111. So, and they cannot be playing like that against Dallas, because what's going to happen when they go up against a team with a great center and a great point guard and great players all around? That is a serious, serious problem that OKC needs to address. Now, moving on from there, there we go. The Dallas Mavericks, they moved from 14th all the way up to 7. So they were ranked relatively low, but I will say the reasoning why they were ranked that low is because they did not have Kyrie Irving in that lineup for most of those games. So they had to take some losses because Luka Doncic was the only one really performing on the offensive end. Their blowout win against OKC definitely improved their rankings, because we saw PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford for the first time in the Dallas uniform. They proved incredibly vital for Dallas, and it shows that that was a very good trade. I said that they were one of the winners of the trade deadline, and so far I've been proven right with this performance coming in from Daniel Gafford, and they've really been utilizing them properly so far. But again, one game, so have to see how they perform in the rest of this week, as well as going into All-Star break, to see exactly where they stand. So just keep moving down. The Knicks, they moved down to 8. Understandable, they don't have a lot of their key players, but they did improve from the trade deadline. Now they just need to get healthy, and that's going to take a few weeks after All-Star break. Again, they have a bunch of time to get healthy, so nothing to really worry about for the Knicks. Not a time to hit the panic button. We just have to wait for Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and OG Anunoby to get better, and put them into the rotation to see what a fully loaded Knicks squad can actually do. And I'm very excited for this Knicks team. So The Phoenix Suns, wow, okay, they stayed in the exact same spot at 9th. So that would mean that the Bucks should probably be 10th. Yep, I knew it. The Bucks are 10th. So I was right about the Bucks moving all the way down to 10th and Philly being completely out of the top 10 power rankings. So no surprises here. The Bucks, they've not been playing relatively well with Doc Rivers as coach. They've only won 2 games with him as the coach, and they've both been against bottom-feeding teams. Really, nothing too impressive there from the Bucks, and like they've really been disappointing with Doc Rivers as the coach. And let me just go ahead and pull up some of the. Yes, their most recent game played was against Charlotte, where they won 120-84. That was only their second win with Doc Rivers as coach. And when you look at Doc Rivers' playoff resume and the amount of series that he's blown, the fact that he still hasn't figured it out is very concerning to me. It is very concerning to me because they have to figure it out, and they have to figure it out now. So that way they'll be ready to come out of the All-Star break and get on a huge win streak to get them back into that top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They need to figure it out right now because I don't think they will be able to figure it out in the playoffs with Doc Rivers as their coach. But we still have a few more minutes before I end off this segment. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. I'm just curious to see what other teams. The Pelicans. Okay, they're ranked 11th, so that's relatively fair given how they beat the Clippers in the recent matchup. The Kings, they moved down again. They lost to OKC in a blowout, so it makes sense that they are moving down. The Pacers, they stay the exact same. I feel like they're going to keep that 13th rating because they have a great offense, but they have a really, really bad defense. And we'll do 2 more. The Sixers, they move all the way down to 14. I was really close. I'm pretty sure I said that they were going to move to 14th. But let me know in the comments if that's what I said. But definitely think that this is well deserved for the Sixers, and they're probably going to move down if they cannot end up winning more games. So the Miami Heat, even after the loss with the Celtics, they move up to 15th. So again, all of these teams completely understandable for being this high in their power rankings. And with that, we are out of time with our 3rd segment. So tune in to the 4th segment as I am doing something a little bit different where I'm actually going to look at some hot takes on the NBA. And I'll explain more of that after this short break. Thank you for tuning in to the 4th segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And this title is not the correct title, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly change that. I apologize. Just 1 second. And here we go. This is exactly what the 4th segment is supposed to be. So we are going to be talking about some of the hot takes that I've read on this Instagram account called Court Coverage. I recommend you look at the account if you do like basketball. But we're going to take a look at some of his hot takes that he posted a few days ago. And hot take number 1 is that the Detroit Pistons are not the worst team in the NBA. Now, that definitely is a hot take because the Pistons, as if you guys don't remember, they recently broke the record for having the longest win streak in NBA history. So, and they are by far the worst team in the NBA right now. I'm going to go ahead and look at exactly what their record is because, as you guys know, I don't necessarily cover the Pistons all that much because there's nothing to really talk about for the Pistons because they're not really going anywhere. There's no general sense of direction for this team at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and look at where they stand right now. And yep, they only have 8 wins in this season and 44 losses. Now, they are by far the worst team in the NBA as of right now. But I think what he means is that on paper and their players, they don't make up the worst team in the NBA, I think. Because, or maybe he's saying that he believes that the Washington Wizards are actually the worst team in the NBA, which they're only 1 win ahead of the Pistons right now. And with that argument in mind, I think it's a little bit fair to say that the Pistons aren't really the worst team in the NBA, but they're definitely top 2 worst teams in the NBA right now between them and the Washington Wizards. Now, the reason why I say this is because the Wizards, they just brought in Jordan Poole, and Jordan Poole recently has been terrible. Not what anyone on Washington was expecting when they brought in Jordan Poole, considering the production he was giving to Golden State. And people were calling him the third Splash Brother. That's how much hype he was getting around the league and while being on Golden State. So with that in mind, for him to now with him now in the season to lead the NBA in box plus minus negatively, right now he leads the NBA in negative box scores. That is horrible. That means that every single time he's on the court, the other team outscores the Wizards. And Kyle Kuzma is right up there too. He is second. And this is really bad. It shows how terrible their defense is and just how cocky Jordan Poole is. His play style and how he plays, it's he thinks he's the best player on the court every single time. And I admire the confidence, but it's he is not playing like he's the best player on the court. He plays ridiculously flashy, every game is a street ball game for him, and he has a huge ego. And it's with that in mind, they definitely are in the running for being the worst team in the NBA, the Washington Wizards. So from a glance, it looks like a hot take, but when you really think about it, not entirely a hot take. So next hot take is the Sixers will be at best a first-round team. Yes, this is 100% true. I 100% agree with this, and there's a possibility that they might not even make the playoffs at this rate with how many games that they've been losing. They might just make the play-in, and they might be one and done in the play-in. So not that much of a hot take, not much to really talk about with this one because, as we all know, the Sixers are not as good of a team without Embiid in this lineup. I was completely wrong. I thought they were going to be better with Joel Embiid out of the lineup, or they were going to play like they were better, like the rest of the players were going to play better. But that's the complete opposite with this team. And the third hot take that he has is that the Warriors should blow it up ASAP, minus Steph Curry and Kuminga. I don't agree with this whatsoever. I think Draymond Green should be included in that package of not blowing it up. They absolutely need Draymond on the team, especially since Draymond recently, a few years ago, he signed an extension with Golden State, which played into the reason why Jordan Poole decided to leave, because the money was going to Draymond when he felt like the money should have been going to him. But I feel like Draymond Green should be kept on the Golden State's rotation because of all the value that he brings, not on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, and just giving Curry the screens that he needs and being able to make looks for the other players, as well as improving the other players' decision-making. Kuminga, his decision-making has improved tremendously, and I think part of that is because of having Draymond Green on the lineup to help him make the better decisions and to teach him what decisions to make and where to stand and where to go, who to pass to, when to score, those kinds of decisions. And the other hot take that he has is neither Oklahoma City or Minnesota will make the conference finals. I agree with this 100%. I think that both of these teams are a little bit too inexperienced and a little too immature to be considered a favorite to making it to the Western Conference Finals, especially with teams such as Denver and arguably Phoenix, arguably Dallas. Dallas has made a deep run. They're capable of making a deep run in the playoffs, as well as the Clippers. Again, I'm not too hot on the Clippers, but I do agree with this. I don't think that the OKC or Minnesota would be able to make it to the conference finals, given if they match up against any of those teams that I've mentioned. Now, the other hot take that he has is Paolo Banchero should not be an all-star. I 100% agree with this. Now, you guys know I am a huge fan of Scotty Barnes. I personally would have rather had Scotty Barnes take Paolo Banchero's position instead as an all-star substitution, but Scotty Barnes, he is an all-star now only because of it was basically out of pity because of the recent injuries to Joel Embiid and to Julius Randle. So, but even without that, I still think he should have been an all-star over Paolo Banchero. That's just me. And the other hot take is the Cavs won't make the conference finals. Now, I mentioned previously that the Cavs have been on a hot streak and they are one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference. But I do think that if the Knicks match up against them in the second round, the Knicks are going to end up being on top. The Knicks beat this Cavs team last year in the playoffs in the first round, and the Knicks have only gotten better since then. So with that in mind, I think the Knicks have a huge advantage going into a series against Cleveland, and they're going to end up winning that series against Cleveland. And also, I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but the Knicks, they are used to a lot of pressure. Being a Knicks player, it's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of media attention that comes with being a Knicks player. The Cavs don't necessarily get that media attention. So with that in mind, I feel like that is going to be the difference maker between the Cavs and the Knicks if they do match up, their ability to handle pressure. And another hot take we have is that Dame should not have been an all-star starter. I 100% agree with this. I think it should have been Trae Young that should have taken the the starting spot. Maybe even Jalen Brunson should have taken the all-star spot over Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard did not deserve to be an all-star this year. It was a popularity contest, given the fact that Trae Young is averaging better numbers than Damian Lillard, and given the fact that Jalen Brunson is also having a better season than Damian Lillard. And we have one more hot take. The Clippers will win the NBA Finals. No. 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 This is by far the worst hot take he has on this list. No. The Clippers, as I mentioned earlier, and I say countless and countless of times, have to see it in the postseason. They have a lot of these players on this roster, minus Kawhi. They are notorious for losing series where they should have won. They are absolutely notorious for doing it. Paul George, in 2020, completely underperformed in the bubble against the Denver Nuggets and was arguably the main reason why that team couldn't make that final step to make it to the Western Conference Finals and have the Battle of LA that we thought was going to happen in the bubble. I'm not going to sit here and completely bosh Paul George, however, because he did lead the Clippers to the Western Conference Finals the year afterwards, going up against Phoenix for the first time in franchise history without Kawhi Leonard. But recently, with how Paul George has been playing in a lot of these games, he's been playing really, really bad. And I have to see it in the playoffs. I have to see that good performance that he had once again in the playoffs. He's had a few more recently. he's had a few more bad performances in the playoffs than he's had good performances in the playoffs. And another player in the starting lineup that is also notorious for blowing a bunch of playoff leads and a bunch of series where he should win is James Harden. James Harden is notoriously known as one of the worst postseason players in NBA history. Both the eye test and the stats show this. So I don't want to make it sound like that I'm completely hating on James Harden. He's a great basketball player, top 4, top 5 shooting guard of all time, but his postseason career leaves a lot to be desired. And it's every single season that he just loses in these postseason games where he should win. And it's his individual performances that are the reason why most of his teams can't get over the hump. So with that in mind, having him in the starting lineup going into the playoffs, it's very, very, it's very scary because he's known for underperforming in a lot of very important games. Same thing with Russell Westbrook recently. Russell Westbrook, he gets a lot of hype from his fans. I am personally not a big fan of Westbrook. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great athlete. He's a great teammate. But his play style is not one of my favorites. He doesn't seem to learn from his past mistakes, especially in late games where he just can't help but take a terrible shot or a terrible three-pointer. And every single time in these recent postseasons, he's underperformed. When he went up against the Utah Jazz against a rookie Donovan Mitchell, he greatly underperformed in that game. And in the final game, in Game 5, he scored 43 points. He scored 45 points, yeah, but he took 43 shots. You can't take that many shots and only get 45 points. I'm sorry, that's not winning basketball. He also underperformed in the bubble when he was on Houston. He underperformed on the Lakers. They didn't make the playoffs because of him. He also underperformed on the Washington Wizards in the postseason against Philly when Philly was the 1 seed. Now, I understand that Philly was the 1 seed, but Russell Westbrook wasn't doing anything to try to get his team to win. He was still making those past mistakes. Kawhi Leonard is the only player that has had dominant postseason runs and he has this aura around the postseason where it's he can't miss, and it's he's going to end up winning the game in the end with the amount of shots that he can make in the postseason. So I don't think that they are going to be the favorites. I have to see this amazing basketball that they're playing in the postseason before I jump to speculations. But with that, we are out of time for this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, wait a minute. There's somebody in the comments. Before I end the stream, I want to acknowledge in the comments. Good stuff, bro. Keep up the grind. Thank you, Muvsy Hoops. If I said your name, forgive me if I completely botched that, but I really appreciate it. It is a lot of work, especially trying to come up with the segment with the Super Bowl happening this weekend. There was a lot of news coming around the Super Bowl and barely any news about basketball, so it was really tough. But I really appreciate it that it doesn't go unnoticed. But with that, we are out of time for this segment. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review, and as always, please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. It really makes a difference. The link is displayed below the ticker on every show segment and is in the link in the description. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, it helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself, the host, you guys, the viewers. Once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And with that, we are out of time. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok for more content and updates. Thank you once again for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and have a wonderful day. And as always, take care.